January 23rd was the coldest day of 2025 for us, where the temperatures got down to a bone-chilling 4 degrees Fahrenheit overnight. And then at exactly 4:35 a.m., our power went out. I woke up a few minutes later, a little bit groggy, and it took me a couple minutes to realize what was going on. Oh, we're having a power failure. But then I remembered how brutally cold it was supposed to get outside, and the panic started to set in. We live in a rural area where power reliability isn't always the greatest, and our home has experienced some power outages in the past that went on for multiple days. Now, if a multi-day outage happens in the spring or the summer or the fall, you might lose all the food in your refrigerator and freezer, but that's hopefully the worst that will happen. But if it happens in the dead of winter when it's 4 degrees outside, you're potentially looking at frozen pipes and water damage all over your house. So that's when we decided to install a pair of Enphase 10C whole home batteries with 20 kilowatt hours of battery storage available. Paired up to the 8 kilowatt solar array on our roof, the question is, will this provide enough electricity to carry our home through a full 24-hour day without the grid on one of the hardest days of the year? Let's find out. Hey, this is Doug from High Tech Life, trying to help you save a little bit of time and a little bit of money in your life. So if you're into that sort of thing, you might want to hit that subscribe button right down there. That night back in January was rough. And so there I was at 5 a.m. in complete darkness, fumbling around with a flashlight, trying to start a fire in our wood-burning fireplace just to keep the temperature in the house up. Because I had no idea if this outage was going to last a few minutes, or half a day, or longer. And yeah, 4 degrees outside. So that's when we decided that getting a whole home battery system might be a good idea for us. Now when it comes to whole home batteries, there are a lot of options in the market to choose from. After looking at several, we ultimately chose the Enphase 10C. This is Enphase's 4th generation of whole home battery systems, and because the system had only been out a few months when we installed it, there weren't many real-world YouTube reviews available for us to watch. So we kind of just had to jump in with both feet, so you get the benefit of seeing how that's worked out for us. Oh, and as I'm recording this, a massive snowstorm is about to pound half the United States, and we're directly in the pathway of that. So I am really glad we have these batteries available to support us. In addition to the batteries, we also took the occasion of doing all this electrical work to install an Emporia View system to monitor power usage on every single circuit breaker in our panel, and then I integrated all the data together into Home Assistant so that we can track where every single kilowatt goes in our home. And I'll put a link down below for the exact system we used from Emporia to do this. So I'm going to show you how we thought through sizing our battery system, what the mobile apps look like, and we're going to run our real-world stress test on the absolute worst day of the year for solar power, the winter solstice, when the sun sets before 5 p.m. If you're seriously thinking about getting a whole home battery system, you're going to want to watch all of this. The Enphase 10C battery system has 10 kilowatt hours of energy storage capacity and a split-second cutover time of about 100 milliseconds in the event of a loss of grid power. 10 kilowatt hours is a lot of capacity, but in addition to capacity and cutover time, if you're shopping for a whole home battery, another important consideration is total power output. So you really need to plan for both if you're looking at a battery system for your home. So let's talk about both those numbers for a second and put them in context. First off, what does 10 kilowatt hours actually look like? Well, very roughly speaking, a single Enphase 10C battery could fully recharge my MacBook here about 200 times. And if 10 kilowatt hours isn't enough, the system is modular. You can string up to 8 units together for a total of 80 kilowatt hours of usable storage. So that was the first number I needed to figure out. How many batteries would we actually need just in terms of overall storage? And so I started by looking at our electric bill to estimate our average daily energy usage. In November of last year, we used about 33 kilowatt hours a day, and that's actually pretty close to the US average. On average, a US home uses around 30 kilowatt hours of electricity per day, but there are a lot of variables like time of the year and the size of your home, the number of people who live there, what your annual climate is depending on where you live. Your battery needs would, if you lived in Alaska, would be significantly more than if you lived in Hawaii. Now, because we have solar panels up on my roof, my thought process was that even on a bad winter day, the solar could cover all the daytime load, so maybe about 1/3 of the day, and charge up the batteries, and then carry us through the night, and then repeat the cycle again the next day. So I estimated that 20 kilowatt hours might be enough, so that would mean buying 2 Enphase 10C batteries. But there's another consideration we had to calculate, and that was what we had to think about peak demand load. Because my monthly electric bill might be able to tell me how much power I used over an entire month, but it can't tell me how much I was pulling at any particular minute of the day. And this is where that Emporia View system became incredibly useful. With the Emporia View system, by monitoring individual circuits, I could get insights into what the large loads in our home actually looked like. And so it was just a matter of watching those loads and adding some things up. So for example, an HVAC system in a typical home might draw 3 to 5 kilowatts when it's running. A kitchen oven might pull 2 to 5 kilowatts. An electric clothes dryer might use 2 to 6 kilowatts when you're drying a load of laundry. A dishwasher with a heating element might consume 1 kilowatt when it's running. And since we have an electric vehicle, that alone can pull about 7.5 kilowatts when it's charging up. And so the Emporia View system was able to help me gain visibility into our peak load needs. As you can see here, with just our EV charging and the HVAC running at the same time, we're already right at around 10 kilowatts of load. And these are two things that could very easily both be on at the same time during normal daily life. So if the power from the grid were to go out and our EV was plugged in and charging and the HVAC was on, well, do we end up exceeding the load capacity of the battery and the whole system shuts itself down? So a single battery with 7 kilowatts of output probably wasn't going to cut it for us, but with 2 Enphase 10C units, that would double our peak load output and give us over 14 kilowatts of continuous output capacity. That felt like it would give us enough headroom to run the house normally without having to think too much about our usage. So now if the power goes out, we just need to be a little bit smart about our usage. No laundry, no cooking a turkey in the oven for 4 hours, that kind of thing. So with 20 kilowatt hours of battery storage on the wall and an 8.1 kilowatt solar array on the roof to recharge the batteries during the day, we had our system set and all that was left is test it. And since our battery system got activated right before the winter solstice, that seemed like the perfect occasion to test. We could put it through the absolute hardest time of the year to see how it would perform in the real world. And some of the data I uncovered came as a bit of a surprise to me. So let's take a look at the tests. Okay, so we got our system installed in late November, and unfortunately the installation was not without some challenges along the way. Initially, as soon as I started to bring up the app, we already had our solar installed, but nothing was reporting. I wasn't actually getting any solar production data, and we weren't getting any data in terms of what electricity was going where within the system. Like everything was a little bit strange. We'd start to go and look in the live view in the application to kind of see where all the electricity was going, and we'd come up with numbers that mathematically just kind of didn't make sense. So we're producing 3.5 kilowatts on the roof, we're charging the batteries 3.5 kilowatts, and oh, by the way, we're also exporting 2.5 kilowatts out to the grid at the same time. So nothing really added up here. We were getting a lot of error messages, solar production being curtailed, gateway rebooting over and over and over again, and the error logs in here almost a week later, and still just gateways not reporting, grid status unknown. Like at this point, I got a lot of expensive hardware on the wall in my garage, and it's not providing any benefits for us. I did start getting notifications from their application via email, which was nice, but I kind of already knew our system had problems. So I started going and trying to troubleshoot this on my own. Now this view here, this is done in Home Assistant. I'm importing all the data when the system's online to bring this into Home Assistant. I'm trying to check the battery charge levels to see where we're at. I thought maybe once it gets charged all the way up, it'll just completely work. And so what you can see here is the batteries charge up, the solar's up, and then it would go down and then it would go offline. And go up and go down, go offline again, and then a big gap here of offline time. So just kind of all confused on what that was. We're getting more error messages over and over. More emails telling me the system's having problems. And so I started to do a little bit more troubleshooting. I started to look at the C6 combiner's status. Now the C6 combiner is basically the traffic cop for all the electricity. It knows about your solar, it knows about your home consumption, it knows about the grid, it knows about the batteries, and it just makes sure everything goes where it needs to go based on how you set the system up. And I kind of noticed, it's like, well, it's coming online at about 8 a.m. and it's going away at 5 p.m. It's putting in a good 8-hour workday. Gosh, that kind of sounds similar to our sunrise and sunset times this time of year. So I went ahead and I plotted the sunset times next to that in this timeline. And when sunset is on here, the yellow on basically means the sun's below the horizon. Visually, I guess that's a little confusing. And then off would be now the sun's above the horizon, it's daytime. So we can see it goes off, and then the system comes online. Sun sets, we go to on, and the system disappears, comes back, does it the next day. So I thought it was on to something, and then we had this big gap here where just nothing happened on that. And that gap actually kind of matches this time frame right in here. So I was baffled, and again, because of the sun, I just kind of pondered, well, I wonder if maybe the cloud cover has something to do with it. So I brought in cloud cover data and plotted that on the timeline as well. And as you can see, on the days when it least would come online during the daytime, There was no cloud cover. And then on the days when it was just off for days at a time, we were just completely overcast. So at this point, I was super frustrated. And fortunately, that exact same day, somebody from Enphase field support proactively reached out to me. I hadn't been calling in. My installer, solar company, the subcontractor had all been sort of keeping in touch with Enphase. Somebody there said, hey, we're going to send a truck to your location. We're going to try and troubleshoot this for you. After the site visit, everything went really, really well. As a matter of fact, it went so well that it kind of immediately charged itself up. And then we had a transformer explosion in our neighborhood here. Somebody posted about it on our local community Facebook group. And I found that actually after I had seen the alert on my phone, I didn't even notice the cutover in my house. I didn't have my phone on me at the moment this happened. Everything seemed normal. And then I looked at this, I said, the system is off grid. And because we just had the installer out that day, I thought, oh, there's still some problems. But then I saw this post in the Facebook group and I said, oh, this actually was a real power outage. And down here, I also had confirmation from our Ting monitor. Ting is it's an electrical fire monitoring kind of appliance you plug into your wall. It's kind of interesting, but what's useful for that is because there are other homes in our community that have a Ting system as well. I get to know when it's like a community brownout or power outage and how many other Ting users are affected. So it gives me a little bit of that visibility outside of my home. So the Ting system detected the brownout. The Enphase system detected it. It cut the home over so quickly I didn't even notice it. And then about 10 minutes after the cutover, it came back online. I'm guessing the Enphase batteries probably just wants to see, like, let's make sure the grid's stable for about 10 minutes before we go and take that grid feed again. And then you can kind of see all that happening here in the application. You can see the notation of the grid changing state here. A little bit of dip in this green part down the bottom we did pull out some of the battery because we were running completely on battery at the time. So this was awesome. The system was finally working the way it was supposed to. All right, with the system working the way it's supposed to, now was the time to run our real-world test. And so I built a custom dashboard in Home Assistant for this. Again, this is not part of the Enphase applications. This is something you can do in Home Assistant. I'll provide some more videos on that in the future. But what you can see here is we are set for self-consumption. So we are not going to use grid at all unless we breach our battery reserve level of 10%, where we set that down here. There's no recharging from the grid. The sun is not up. You can see the time of day here, 4:55. The sun is basically about to set. You can see the battery is more or less topped up, 19,900 watt hours. And then down here in the large number on solar versus home load, the large number is our solar generation. Like I said, it's basically sunset. This is going to go to 0 in just a second here. And then the inside number is the 0.32. That's the home load. That's what the home's currently asking for. The 0.32, that's kind of the inner blue gauge here, and then the solar generation is the outer gauge, but like I said, that's going to go to 0 any second now. You can see our temperatures and you can see our battery capacity levels here in the horizontal chart at the bottom. So let's see how it worked out. Okay, so you can see here we got all the way to 7:32 in the morning, the sunrise, the sun's coming up now, and we are at 27% of our overall battery capacity. So we had just a nice steady usage all night overnight, and so it worked. Our system passed our test. We got through a sunset to a sunrise on one of the hardest days of the year. But I have to admit, I cheated in what I showed here a little bit. This is December 28th. So this is December 27th to 28th. A few days off from the winter solstice. The sunset, sunrise times, basically the same. But when we ran this the first time, the test failed. And so I kind of wanted to run it a few times to see what we could get here, see if we can make it do it once. So on our fifth and final test, it did pass. You can see the data here, 100% starting charge at 44 degrees Fahrenheit, keeping the home at 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and we still had 27% in the morning, so we made it the entire evening. The very, very first test failed. Now, it did get through 11 hours, but, you know, that was a failure, and that wasn't a great way to start off my little experiment here. So I was kind of bummed about that, and so we kind of ran it a few more times. And what we found when we looked at the data here is that, yeah, the outdoor weather really, really mattered for this. When it was kind of, you know, 40s-ish range, we kind of got through okay. And when it got down to 25s, and if it started off colder in the evening, we just didn't have enough. Granted, 11 hours is a long time to go, so that's pretty good overall. The grid might have come back on for a period of time, so I was pretty happy with the overall number there, but technically that did not pass our test, so I had to run it a few more times. And then in the middle of our testing, the storm guard system kicked in, and this was really, really cool to see how quickly this responded because the weather alert came out from the National Weather Service at 11:53 a.m. We can see here on my phone, it says 12:52. That's when I noticed the alert here. But actually our system changed over about 10 minutes before that. This data I had to pull out of our Home Assistant that's importing all the data from the system. And I could see that the reserve battery level was changed to 100% at 12:43. Storage mode's changed to full backup, charge from grid turned on, all at 12:43. So about 50 minutes after that National Weather Service alert, our system said, okay, we're going full backup. We're ready to go. We're going to make sure the house is protected. And it's very, very cool watching it work. There's all sorts of automatic conditions where this will just kick on for you and make sure that your home is protected as it can be. So after running our system through one of the hardest scenarios you can throw at a home battery, short daylight hours, cold temperatures, overnight heating loads, I've learned a few things. And mostly it's that weather really matters. Sure, the number of hours of sunlight is important, but the temperature variances across all of our tests clearly made a difference in terms of whether we could make it all the way through the night or not. Heat pump systems like the one that we have tend to struggle as the temperatures start to dip below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And if it gets really cold and the auxiliary heating coils have to kick in, those things can often pull 5 to 10 kilowatts of load just on their own. So I'm hoping that most of our outages would actually be less than 11 hours long in the dead of winter, because that's as far as we made it on that first failed test. But if we felt like we needed more capacity, the modularity of the Enphase 10C system means we could just add another battery to our wall, and that would probably carry us even through the most extreme nights. Seeing the storm guard mode kick in during the middle of my experiments was actually pretty cool. That was kind of an unplanned interruption in my load testing, but it worked so amazingly well I kind of enjoyed watching it. As soon as those National Weather Service alerts were posted, the system just said, hey, we're going into full backup mode, and it sucked in as much power as it could from both the panels and the grid to top itself off as quickly as possible. And then it just stayed there in backup mode with that entire 20 kilowatt hours of capacity just topped off at all times and ready to step in a split second if we needed it. And then whenever the weather event was over, it just automatically switched itself over into self-consumption mode again. Very cool. So now instead of reacting to power outages with flashlights and firewood, we have options. I've definitely been happy with our purchase so far, and we're going to put it to the ultimate test this weekend as this storm is about to hit. If you're thinking about adding batteries to your home, especially if you already have solar, I have a referral link down below which will get you a $100 gift card off a system installed if you start a no obligation quote through that link. And I've also got a link to the Emporia View system down below as well if you're interested in that. Even if you're not doing solar or batteries, it's really interesting to see where all of your electricity is going, and I'll be doing another video on that here on the channel sometime soon, so be sure to subscribe to see that. And when the weather gets nicer, I'm going to try to find some time in the spring when the temperatures will be mild, and there's multiple days of sunshine in the forecast, and I'm just going to set the system into self-consumption mode and see how many off-grid days I can rack up. So be sure to subscribe to see that when that comes out too. And until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Oh, and as I'm recording this, a massive snowstorm is about to pound the United States, and we're directly in the pathway of the United States.